Over to Newcastle, Pete. As the end of the window draws closer, do you think that they could actually tempt Everton into parting with Dominic Calvert-Lewin as his contract nears the end? Obviously, this is their last chance to get a fee for him.
Yeah, it could represent their last chance to get money for Calvert-Lewin if he does end up running down his contract at Goodison Park, which is looking more and more likely with every passing week that he is going to sort of reject any new deal and potentially explore his options as a free agent in the summer, where I think he will have a lot of interested clubs in his services. Big issue for Everton right now is, look, they can't really afford to lose Calvert-Lewin and Beto, so I think it'll be one or the other if any of them two are to leave. I can't see them letting both players leave in this January transfer window. Probably Calvert-Lewin would get you more money, would represent a bigger fee, but I think Newcastle, they're ready to sit out and wait and try and bring him to St James's Park next year as a free agent. Be the perfect replacement for Callum Wilson, who looks like he will probably end up leaving Newcastle when his contract expires at the end of the season. So Calvert-Lewin coming in will be a like-for-like replacement for Callum Wilson in Eddie Howe's plans as well. And I don't think Newcastle probably have the money to maybe persuade Everton to sell Calvert-Lewin in this window as well. You're probably looking around 15 plus million to even get anywhere near the negotiating table to try and do a deal for Calvert-Lewin in this window. So I think for Everton right now is they'll probably have to bite the bullet and keep hold of Calvert-Lewin and hope that he can regain his best form and score them goals to ensure that they stay in the Premier League this season.
They can't score Everton, but I mean they can't let both the strikers go, can they? I mean, no. With the injury to Brozier, which obviously he's going to be out for a long time now. He looked decent when I saw him the other week, actually, Brozier, come on against Manchester City. Yeah. And I thought, actually, for the rest of the season, he'd have a really good option in him. He looked fit and he looked strong. And then he got that nasty injury. So without Beto, without Calvert-Lewin, whether they're not creating the chances and giving these two players the opportunity. Listen, I think at the end of the season, it's a revamp for Everton completely under David Moyes. The important thing is getting to the end of the season, staying in the Premier League, let Calvert-Lewin go, let Beto go, get two strikers, get another striker who's definitely going to score you the goals. Goals is a huge problem for Everton, as we've known. It's not something that David Moyes is going to fix immediately overnight. And listen, you're not going to fix that problem by selling your only decent striker at the club. I'm surprised at the amount of the clubs that are looking at Calvert-Lewin. He hasn't done it for a long time. He's not stayed fit or injury-free for a long time. And he certainly hasn't hit the numbers that he did earlier on in his career that got him the reputation that he's got. Maybe a fresh start is what he wants. I don't think there'll be a lot of Everton fans that would be against him having a fresh start. Let him go, reload with a couple of new strikers ready to go again next year.
And Paul, Brian Mbeumo's talks with a lot of clubs are starting to heat up this window. It seems like the player has told Brentford he doesn't plan to sign a new contract there, and therefore they may look to get a fee for him in January. You think Newcastle might make a push towards the end of this window to attempt to beat, Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester United, the other clubs that are, racing for his signature?
Listen, I think Brentford are in the driving seat here because he's contracted to June 2026, if I'm not wrong, and there's an option on his contract, and it's the club's option. So if the club extend that option, it's till 2027. So the player's not, the one holding all the cards here, which is quite, it's a different take on matters. With Mbeumo, it's going to take a big fee. Listen, we know that Brentford will sell if they get the right fee, but they're not going to have to be held to ransom because of the contracts. Like I say, he's 2026 with an option, and it's the club's option. So they've covered the sell very well, the club, and the club will get a good fee for him. I mean, he's 25 now, so now is the optimal time to sell him. Plays right wing as a forward. He can play anywhere across the front four if you like. 13 goals and 3 assists already this Premier League season. He's best that he's ever had. So I think if Brentford are to cash in on him, it will be this season. This is probably the last season where they get top dollar for him, because at the end of this season we go into next year, we start talking about his contract going down. There's so many clubs that are in the market for forwards. We can sit here and list the clubs that want forwards, and he's a wanted commodity at the moment. And while Brentford are in the driving seat, they'll drive the price up in a similar way to what Brighton have done. I don't for 1 minute think that there's clubs that wouldn't take him. There's a lot of talk at Liverpool around Mohamed Salah. Arsenal, example, we're going to talk about them. They need a number 9. It's glaringly obvious that they need a number 9. He can do a job both there and in a wide area. And I'm sure a lot of Liverpool and Arsenal fans would take Mbeumo. But he's going to take a big fee and a hefty fee to get out of Brentford this season.
And Pete, it wouldn't be a Newcastle discussion if we didn't talk about potential sales. As we know, they're always dealing with PSR issues. Lloyd Kelly, the most recent name to be linked with an exit. Do you think that may happen? He just arrived this summer, so it'd be a quick turnaround.
Yeah, I would be surprised if Newcastle would be willing to let Lloyd Kelly go. obviously would represent a big profit for him if they were to sell him. They got him on a free transfer from Bournemouth in the summer. Obviously Eddie Howe had worked with him at Bournemouth and was keen to be reunited with him at St James's Park. Kelly has struggled for minutes in the team, obviously due to the form of Fabian Schär and Dan Burn, and now Sven Botman's back to fitness. He finds himself even further down the pecking order. I just don't see Eddie Howe being open to letting Lloyd Kelly leave in this January window. He won't want to weaken his squad. He's seen what has happened with his defensive options not so long ago with all the injuries that they had. Obviously losing Botman, they lost Jamal Lascelles. They've had major injury problems there, and it really hurt Newcastle last season. Newcastle are flying right now as well in the league, probably the most informed team. They look like they're real serious contenders for top four, and with Alex Isak scoring goals all the time, they're a team to be feared. So I don't think Eddie Howe will want to weaken his squad, even if flipping Lloyd Kelly would represent a huge profit for the club. I think he'd want to keep hold of his squad just in case there's any injury problems, and I'm sure the player himself wants to stay and fight for his place and prove himself to the Newcastle faithful that he can do a job for them.
Played at the weekend. I watched their game at the weekend. I was there for the FA Cup tie. Listen, he's a player that Eddie Howe obviously likes. Took him on a free, didn't he? And he's this short space of time. It frustrates me. So it must frustrate the hell out of Newcastle fans that they're always linked with selling their best players. You know, he's a young player. He's come on a free. Well, not like he's 26, isn't he? But he's a good player. That he's
young compared to us.
Yeah, compared to me and you. Yeah. But as part of that squad, that's the type of players that they want. You know. But forever and a day, people like us, you're lifting up the newspapers, you're talking to the press. Newcastle will sell Gomeres, Newcastle will sell Isak, Newcastle, trade Lloyd Kelly. These rules have to be changed. They have to be altered. They're preventing clubs like Newcastle, like Forest, who've got the finances to do what Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal, other clubs have done for years and years and years with no restriction. All of a sudden now, Newcastle aren't allowed to close the gap as quickly as they want. And to their detriment, they potentially could have to sell players if they want to strengthen other areas. These rules have to be looked at and they have to be changed. I mean, to be a Newcastle fan, yes, it's the richest club in the world, but it must drive you absolutely mad when every day you see your best players linked to other clubs. Newcastle don't have to sell at the moment. We've seen the FFP and the PSR. They don't have to sell. If Eddie Howe comes out of this window with the squad that he's got intact, they've had a good window.